Today, it is Cody Ceci. Scored 1 goal. It was like the second game of the year, then didn't score again. But you don't pay Cody Ceci to score you goals. You pay him to defend well and eat minutes. And where I'll give him credit is that he played 80 games and he ate a lot of minutes.
Yep.
He has a tough ask. He makes $3.25 million, and he's supposed to be basically a top pairing defenseman for this team. And early on in the season, when it was Barrie and Bouchard behind him, he was their only right shot D man who was good defense, who is defense first. Is how I'll phrase that.
Defensively, yeah.
Still, he struggled. I'm starting to maybe regret my regular season grade a little bit. I want to knock him up a little bit. I think I'm going to change this from C- to C+. He wasn't good enough, even though the ask is hard. He wasn't good enough, in my opinion, to have a B grade in either of these two scenarios. In the playoffs, I thought he really struggled and made a lot of boneheaded moves that cost them goals. And again, no matter how much you make, some of it was effort and focus based, in my opinion, which is why I'm grading him as tough as I am. He doesn't move the puck particularly well. He's never going to help you out offensively. He skates up the ice okay at times and things like that. I think he actually does have like a decent offensive brain when it comes to the game. But the issue for me is that he didn't do the physical things well enough. That goal we talked about, whatever it was, game 3, where he just stood there and let Eichel and Marchessault do whatever they want. That can't happen. And come playoff time, every play matters that much. So I'm going to up his regular season grade to C+. His playoff grade for me is C-. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, before you send me what you're going to do, I put my grades on the graphic and I edited them accordingly. I had him as a C for the regular season. I thought there was points in the year you didn't really hear from him, but as the year went on, he gradually did get worse. And I actually had him as a C- as well. For the playoffs, I think for a guy who was so effective for them in the playoffs last season and very reliable, he kind of just fell apart at points. And I think when the team defense overall was so bad in the playoffs, most of it relies on that top 2 pairing of Nurse and Ceci. And I think when you look at them too, a lot of the mistakes came from Ceci rather than Nurse. So yeah, I think that's fair. And I also had him at a 50% chance of returning because out of all the defensemen, he's the one I think that should be moved if you're going to move anybody.
Yeah. 50%. I really do think it's a coin flip, man.
I do too.
I'd be interested to see what people have to say in the chat. Adarath says, do you package Broberg for an upgrade on Ceci? So I'm assuming you mean package Broberg and Ceci. The tough part with that is Broberg would be of interest to teams who aren't contending. Ceci, he's of interest to a very small amount of teams, I think, right? Teams that have money are looking to take a step forward maybe and want a reliable guy to insulate young D-men. I don't know if Broberg and Ceci, of the Venn diagram of teams interested in one and the other, I don't know how many are in that middle group, if any. So I'm not sure if you can just straight up do that. Les says, Tyler, if you're grading Ceci that hard, I hope you're giving Nurse a D grade. I mean, we'll get to Nurse on whatever day we get to Nurse. But he also added Ceci's barely a number 4 guy. And someone said, you got to give Ceci a look away from Nurse. Listen, if we're going to sit here and be like, if you're going to be hard on Nurse, if you're going to call Ceci barely a number 4 guy, okay, well, you were asking Darnell Nurse to play top pairing minutes. You were asking Ceci to play top pairing minutes as well. I think we can all agree Darnell Nurse is a top 4 guy. I am still of the belief that Darnell Nurse is a top 2 guy. He's not a 1, but he can be a top 2. You got to play him with talent. And you're playing him with a guy who, Les, as you said, is barely a number 4. So can you be hard on Darnell Nurse and criticize his ability as a top pairing D-man when you're trying to ask him to play top pairing minutes with a guy who's barely a number 4, in your opinion? That's my problem with that line of thinking.
Yeah, I don't think that's very fair, is it? Like, you're asking, that role is supposed to be, Ceci is supposed to be the defensive-minded player on that team. And it honestly feels like a lot of the time Nurse is kind of making up for the mistakes Ceci is making when he turns over the puck in poor ways or isn't playing physical. So I think Nurse actually has to overdo a lot of things when he plays with Cody Ceci. Cody Ceci, for me, needs to play more physically and be more tough on players. And when that happens, I think that's kind of when he's playing at his best. And I think we saw that more last season, the year before. Yeah, so that's what I want to see more from Ceci this year. I don't really care if he scores goals. Like, he scored 1 goal, 15 points this season. Plus 11 for scoring 15 points is actually a pretty good rate, in my opinion. Like, he's not out there a lot, I don't think, trying to be offensive, right? And dude, you know what was weird, actually? In the playoffs, I saw him like 3 or 4 times like up in the rush.